Hello and welcome back to Sounds on the Couch. I am very much looking forward to introducing to you today's guest. Diane Foy is a creative PR and marketing coach based in Toronto in Canada. She has had her hand in being a makeup artist, a photographer, a journalist, followed by 16 years within the music industry. She also operates a podcast by the name of Sing, Dance, Act, Thrive, where she has conversations with musicians, actors, dancers, and other industry influencers, all about succeeding within the arts. So Diane has created a free resource for artists called How to Attract Fans, Media and Industry for Musicians and Actors, the 6-phase roadmap to book gigs and make money. So today she's here to talk all about creating a roadmap to succeeding within the music industry and building a fan base. So let's just get started, shall we? So hi, Diane. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Very welcome. Would you like to maybe just start by telling us a little bit about who you are in everyday life?
Ooh, in everyday life. In everyday life, I'm just a cat person. But for what I do for a living is I coach, I help musicians and actors attract fans, media, and industry so that they can book gigs and make money with your talent. So it is based on PR and marketing, but I go deep into like personal branding and really figuring out who you are, what are your stories, what's unique about you, and then how to share that with the world to attract your fans and your industry to get what you want, achieve your goals.
Fantastic. I mean, it sounds like what we're all wanting, doesn't it? So would you like to maybe let us know a little bit about what led you to doing this in the first place?
Yeah, so I have just always loved arts and entertainment from a young age. I was just so attracted to it. And I always coach artists to know your why. Why do you do what you do? And so I've done the exercise myself, and I keep getting deeper and deeper to my why is yes, I always loved music and entertainment, but I think when I was a kid, I was just so shy.
Yeah.
Like you say hi to me, I'm hiding, you know? And I was always drawn to performers because they just seemed so confident and full of personality. And I just loved music. I loved movies and television. And like I never had a Barbie doll. My dolls were Donnie and Marie and Charlie's Angels and Wonder Woman. And so it was always pop culture. And so when it came time to figure out what I'm going to do for a living, I just knew I wanted to do something in entertainment, but I didn't know what. And I just started looking at all different job titles. I pulled out my Pat Benatar tour book and looked at all the credits. And I'm like, that's not it. That's not it. And I saw photographer. I was like, okay, I could be a photographer. And I think everything I've done, it's not necessarily because I wanted to do that thing. It was just my way of being around entertainers and being in the industry. So started as a photographer. Then I was a makeup artist for a long time. And even with those two things, it's like, well, I always wanted to work with bands and artists and performers. For when I was a makeup artist, I did a lot of music videos and photo shoots with bands, and I did some music journalism. I was like, that's not it either. And obviously I wanted to be in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, but these other things were kind of on the outskirts. Looking in. So I went to school for entertainment management and learned everything to do with the music business. And I kind of figured going in that publicity would be my thing. But it was good to still learn all the other things about the industry. And I just started my company and just went for it. I didn't really have a plan. I started doing publicity for friends' bands just to start out. And I started getting them really cool media attention. And then a few big time managers in the industry started hiring me for their bands. And that's kind of how it started. And especially those first few years, I got to work with a lot of, I guess, well-known artists, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
And then to lead to what I do now is 16 years as a publicist, the industry's changed a lot. And I love, even though I've worked with celebrities, I love working with the up and comers and really helping them, sharing my knowledge, helping them, navigate the industry and figuring out how to succeed. And as a publicist, too many artists would come to me without really having what I need to get them press. When I started, you didn't need a lot. It was easier. There was more outlets. I could pitch a band that maybe didn't have a lot going on, but they like the album. Okay, they'll do a review, but that doesn't happen anymore. So it was harder and harder to get them press.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. I wanted to help them, but because they would come to me and I'm like, but you don't really have a social media activity. Your photos are kind of generic. Your friend took them, right? And your bio is so-and-so started playing guitar at blah, blah, blah. It's like, I can't get you pressed with that.
Yeah.
So I would have to turn them away. And I just turned away over and over again. And I'm like, go and do this and come back. But of course, I started to realize that they don't know how to do those things. And so they're left, or they would go and hire a publicist that would take them, right? There's a lot of publicists that, oh, you got $5,000? Okay, let's do a campaign. And then you wonder, in the end, you're not happy because you didn't get what you hoped. But then the publicist probably did all that they could do with what you give them. So I spent a lot of time kind of talking people out of hiring me. And so then now I find they come to me now after they've done that. I'm like, okay, you're right. Start and build a foundation. And so when I discovered coaching, it was like a light bulb went off and I'm like, oh, now I can help you.
Yeah.
Now I can set you up and I'll teach you, I'll coach you through every step. And then my goal is, when we're been working together for a while, is that you're a publicist dream, your media dream. I want it to be so that agents and media are coming to you. And that's kind of the goal. So I help them get there.
It's such an amazing story.
Coaching.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting journey as well, where you've come from. I mean, mentioning that you were quite shy to start with. I mean, a lot of these developments would have been quite challenging. Like, there would have been things for you to overcome. But then having that care for those artists and really wanting them to understand success, that's amazing. So I guess, there is a big gap in terms of a lot of artists knowing where they want to get to and what that gap is that they need to fill in regards to knowing what they have to provide and what they sorry, losing my voice. And so I guess what are some of the biggest gaps that you see in regards to artists that are just starting to build up that repertoire?
I think too many are in too much of a hurry.
Yeah.
And I try to give you what you want, but I just can't. You're just gonna if you just keep throwing things against the wall and see what sticks, it's like, it's not sustainable. And then when you do hire that publicist, when you don't have the stuff that you need, you might get a few good placements, but it's not going to be long-lasting success.
Yeah.
And you won't know how you got it, And so I'm always like, okay, let's hit pause.
Yeah.
You'll get to where you want to go, but you always want it now. Like, so many artists come to me, it's like, I got a recording ready, let's go. Like, let's do publicity, get me pressed, good, and it's like, but if you don't have the foundation built, it's not gonna achieve the results that you want. And so my challenge is usually convincing them to press pause, and we'll get you where you want to go. It just might take a little longer than you hoped. But at least you work with me for a year, you'll be way ahead of where you'd be and probably spend less money, because if you try and do it on your own, you're okay, I'll hire this person, I'll hire that person, I'll take this course. And you're trying to piece together something, and it's hard to figure out what's right for you. And that's the thing with coaching too. There's a difference between consultant and coach.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of consultants in the industry. There's a lot of people that have been in the industry for a long time, and they're more of a consultant. And they'll tell you, guide you, and they'll give you lots of advice too. But it's a bit more, this is what you got to do my way. This is what I know. This is what you got to do. And you don't want to listen to me, whatever. Right. Whereas coaching, I have the experience and knowledge that I'll share, but it's more, I'm helping you figure out what is best for you. What do you really want? What are your strengths? How are we going to goal set this to get you where you want to go? And then when it comes to the marketing and all that stuff, it's like, it's authentic. You're not putting on a brand. I know a lot of artists want to shy away from personal brand, marketing. Those words are scary. They're like, you're going to put a brand on me and I got to be someone I'm not. And sometimes it still probably happens, but you hear those stories of, a label picking up a 16-year-old and, okay, you're going to record these songs. You're going to look like this. You're going to dress like this. And it's not them, or they haven't even figured out who they are yet. And so the way I go about it is very authentic and really figuring out who you are. And a brand is just showcasing who you are, everything about you. And it's just taking some time to explore that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so what are some of the things that you might go through if you've got a new artist coming on board? What are some of the things that you would start to look at with them?
So I usually take them through the process of the 6 phases. I have a freebie that people can download, dianefoy.com/freebie. And it's how to attract fans, media, and industry for musicians and actors, because I work with actors as well. And it starts with clarity, getting really clear on what is your future vision? What do you want? And then goal setting. Okay, if you want that at 10 years, where do you need to be at 5 years? What are your 1-year goals? Then let's break it down. I find I used to not do this either. I used to just go with the flow. I was a go with the flower. I never got anywhere, because you're just going in a million different directions. And even if you are clear on your goal, if you don't break it down, you feel like you're working and not getting anywhere. So at least if you break it down to what you need to do this week, that is one step closer to your goal, then you feel motivated because you feel like you're accomplishing things. So I help artists with that first. And then we explore how to build your confidence. So we explore your why motivation, why do you want this? Because a career in the arts, it's not easy. Challenges are going to come your way. And I'm sure you see it, all your friends. It's there's so many that just quit because it's hard. And if you really get clear on why you want this, then you have the motivation to keep going when things go wrong. So we talk about that. We talk about core values. We explore the strengths, skills, weaknesses, and limiting beliefs is a big one. we all have limiting beliefs. We have, core things that are ingrained in us. And sometimes you don't realize they're there. But I find if you're procrastinating on something, there's probably a limiting belief behind that.
Yeah.
So we explore that.
So would you maybe be able to explain sorry to interrupt, would you be able to maybe explain a little bit about what a limiting belief is for maybe somebody who might not understand that?
So say you're a musician and you're a woman, maybe you're 40 years old. A limiting belief could be, I'm too old. I'm too old to make it. I'm too old to be an artist, a musician, a successful musician. And that's just a limiting belief and it might stop you from really going for it. But if you really look at it, well, it's not true. Is it true? That's the thing, that your belief is like, is it true? Well, no, there are examples of other people doing this. So, and it's just challenging that. A lot of people have limiting beliefs around money. Like, I'll struggle my whole life. I will, maybe if you're procrastinating on going live on social media, going on video, and you feel like you've done all the things that you could do. So why aren't you doing it? There might be something blocking you, and maybe it's you have an issue being seen, or it's just exploring that. It usually comes down to childhood experiences, family influences. Maybe it's your mother's voice in your head telling you that you can't. It's we all have our goals, but sometimes we may not really believe that it's possible.
Yeah.
And it's just recognizing that when those thoughts come up. Yeah. And then having a counter statement to say it. Because it takes a while to get rid of that voice, Yeah. So if you can have that, well, the voice comes up, oh, you'll never make it. No, that's not true. And because
I mean, it sounds like you go quite deep into personal development for these artists and actors and creative people. And I guess it's a really important point to bring up, how important it is to really discover yourself, to be able to express yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
That's why I love the foundation part.
Yeah.
And most artists want to skip it. And I think it's because it's hard. It's hard to kind of really be honest with yourself, to really look deep, look at your weaknesses and things that are holding you back, and even sharing your story. Sometimes you're not comfortable sharing your experiences. And so that's why your bio is very by the numbers. But if you don't kind of share who you are authentically and your stories, it's hard to connect with people. And these days it's all about connection, whether it's social media or, being on stage and engaging an audience. You need to be able to share a part of yourself and share stories. And even if it's something that has nothing to do with your art, it's a life experience. Tell these stories, and then people will connect with you and really get drawn in. And then they'll also check out your music, and that's where you get your super fans. And having the audience kind of go, oh, me too. Oh yeah, that's, I relate to that. It just makes, that's where you attract those super fans.
And I guess I've heard so many times before that your fans don't connect with your music so much. They connect with you, like who you are. So yeah, I think that's great that you've brought that up. So once you've started delving into sort of what's behind you and your personal development, how do you then move forward in your process?
So kind of once we do that foundation, well, now hopefully you are more confident. You really believe that your dreams can come true. You believe it because we've broken it down into goal setting, and I'm showing you a path to get there.
Yeah.
Now you want to share it with the world. So then that's where content creation comes in. It's figuring out, making sure your website, make sure you have a website. That's my pet peeve.
Yeah.
Artists that don't have a website. It's your home base. It's the only thing you own. And have like your social links front and center.
Yeah. Would you be able to maybe explain a little bit about that, the importance of having a website rather than just relying on social media?
Well, for one, social media can be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Look at all those MySpace fans that were famous on MySpace, and I don't have a website, I have my MySpace. Yeah. And Vine, all the artists that like built up a huge following on Vine, and it's gone. You don't own these platforms, and they can change at any time. And even Facebook now, you might have built up your page to have tons of followers, but now it's pay for play. So nobody's really seeing your posts on your Facebook page unless you're buying advertising. So website is your home base. And ideally, when you're posting on socials, you want to send them to your website and have like a call to action, a freebie that I actually just had Catherine Forbes on my website. She's from Music Biz Besties. There's a great community on Facebook for female musicians in the music industry. And she's a web designer. So I just had her on telling about the different aspects of web design, and she was talking about the call to action. So what is it, a freebie that you can give so that someone will give you their email address, and you want to capture them, email, keep them connected through email so that you don't have to rely on just one social site. And also from a publicist media point of view, if you don't have you need to have a website, because I might want to see your Instagram and read your bio. Someone else might want the link to Spotify. Someone else might want your YouTube. Someone else, depends on what they're looking for. But if your only link is to Instagram, you're not giving me what I need. And so people want to help you. And I've, on the media side, they might want to write about you and your band, but if you're not giving them what they need, they're going to go somewhere else to the next person, because you can only say so much on Instagram, or you go to YouTube and I'm like, I just want to read your bio. Where's your bio? So it's a home base, and then you have all your links. So on the website, it should be your bio, some photos, links to everywhere else, and have it front and center. Because sometimes even when someone has a website, I still have to search for your social links.
And I guess it's so much easier to create a band or an artist website now as well. You've got so many options. I can't think of the names right now, but there are some options where you can just enter in your information and upload the documents, and it sets up a whole artist website for you. Or you can go more detailed and get people to help you with that. But it is so much easier to create that home base now.
Yeah. So there's really no excuse.
Yeah. So beyond that, so we've got our home base all set up. What do we look at next?
So social media is really important.
Mm.
You know, when I was doing more publicity, if I pitch a media outlet to cover an artist, the first thing they're going to do is look at your socials.
Yeah.
Before listening to your music, before anything else,
Yeah.
what are your socials? And if you are not that active on socials, they're going to move on to the next person. And it's just the way it is because everything's online now.
Mm.
So there's so much competition too. There's so many artists pitching
Yeah.
that they can't possibly cover everyone. So what's in it for them? I think with everything that you want, you have to think about what can I offer them? And so if a blog is going to take the time to interview you, cover you, some blogs do pay their writers and they're going to pay a writer to cover you. They want you to be able to post on your socials and send them traffic.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win for everybody involved. And if you don't really have that, they're just going to skip to the next artist that does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I find a lot of artists, they, wonder why that person that maybe isn't as talented as you, but why is that person getting all the gigs? Why is that person getting all the media? It's, well, look what they do. They're probably very active on social. They're probably really sharing who they are.
Yeah.
They're really putting themselves out there. They're connecting with people.
Yeah.
People get on board with that.
No, fantastic. And so I guess when you're posting on social media, there's so much question about how much you should be posting, how many platforms you should be on, what you should be sharing. And I guess you've gone into that quite a bit in terms of the connection and the story. But what are your thoughts on how active you should be with social media? I guess it can be quite overwhelming for a lot of artists to think, oh, I need to be on Instagram, I need to be on Facebook, I need to be sending emails, I need to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I totally understand the overwhelming because it is Instagram alone.
Yeah.
There's the feed, there's stories, there's reels, there's IGTV, there's guides, there's, it's just endless, right? And to master it all, that's going to take some time.
Mm.
And you can't do everything at once. And so pick your platform. And this is where also some of that earlier research of figuring out who your target audience is, where are they?
Mm.
And that's going to be different for different artists. So where are your ideal fans hanging out?
Yeah.
If you have a bit of a younger audience, then yeah, go for TikTok, go for, but if you're a little bit older, then maybe your audience is on Facebook.
Mm.
Instagram seems to be the one most people are focusing on.
Yeah.
And because it is such a big thing to tackle, I say just start with the feed.
Yeah.
Be consistent, figure out how the feed works. If, ideally you want to get to the point where you're posting every single day on the feed and multiple times a day in stories.
Yeah.
But it might take some time to get there. So if you can just commit to posting on the feed 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Work your way up to every day. And then once you got a system in place and you're posting consistently, then maybe tackle stories. If you're good on video, the video is getting the most attention. So if reels and live video is your thing, go for it and not do most of your content with video. So it's just starting small and adding once you kind of build the habits. And I get asked a lot about what to post because if you post every single day on the feed, you post a video and you post multiple times a day on socials, that's a lot of content. So this is a bit where that early exploring that we did, exploring your story, and you want to come up with like categories to talk about of what you're going to be posting. So behind the scenes, it could be maybe you have a hobby or another job outside of your music that you're really passionate about, whether it's you're passionate about yoga, boxing, I don't care what it is, like horses, pets. Show your personality and show the things that you do outside your music. So that could be a category, so that you're not just going, check out my music, check out my music, check out my music. Check out your music should be like one every 8 posts, you know?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do the rest of the time? Behind the scenes, your why motivation, tell stories about that. Tell stories about how you got into this. And it's just constantly sharing. And I help artists set up a system so that they have like a story vault, captions, a list of tons of captions, and then a bunch of photos. And so when you're scheduling, you can just pull from that and you're not left wondering what you're going to post that day.
Yeah.
And so if you could schedule that stuff, then you could spend your time every day just engaging with people and then doing more stories. So it's building from there, and then sharing. You can repurpose content too.
Yeah.
You just don't want to post the same thing on all platforms at the same time.
Yeah.
People tend to jump around. So
what do you,
once you've done it.
Sorry, what in terms of repurposing content? I mean, obviously, if you're not sharing the same thing, is there ways that you think that maybe you can repurpose it in a different way to engage a different audience? Like, say you're speaking to your Facebook audience as opposed to your Instagram audience. Can you repurpose something in a different way effectively?
Yeah. And also, say you did a live on Facebook and maybe the live went on for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was you're talking about or you're performing. You can take that same video and maybe break it up into stories. You can transcribe the video if you were talking about something, and you could use the text in captions and have photos of it. And it's just like breaking it up that way, and you could repurpose it. Sometimes you are going to post the same thing on Instagram as you do Facebook, but you want to make sure it's not just all connected. Like, don't just post automatically on these things. So, you know, if you post on Facebook and it has like 30 hashtags, that's not going to work. Or you're tagging the wrong people because you're not adjusting it for the platform.
Yeah.
But I would also say, like, do it at different times if it is going to be the same thing.
Okay.
It's just,
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. I think there's so much valuable information in this. So beyond social media, where do we go from there?
So once you've kind of started building your following on socials, and again, it's not just enough to post, you need to actually make efforts to engage with people on those platforms. And then it's people skills, media skills. So yes, so much of it is online, and it will be for a while since we can't leave our house. But when in a normal world, there are conferences and festivals that you can go to, and where you can really network and meet the people that could help you. So also having a plan of that and working on those things. And that's where the personality comes in. It's like, if you're a real introvert, it's exploring that and going, okay, in certain situations, I need to push myself to be a little bit more extrovert. So that, and then we can kind of go on to publicity then. You know, you can either hire a publicist and a radio promoter, or I can continue on and coach you and teach you how to do it yourself for the first little while.
Yeah.
At some point, yes, you do want to go hire the professionals, because hopefully by that time you're so busy.
Yeah.
You can't possibly do it all. But it's good for you to do some of it on your own, of getting blog posts and Spotify playlists and maybe getting on campus radio, doing these little things on your own so that when you do hire other people, you kind of know what they're going through, and you have more realistic expectations, and you've also done the groundwork for them so that they can just take off because you've already had these little things. Now they can take that to the bigger outlets that would be very hard for you to get on your own.
Yeah.
And they will have that leverage because you've built up this following.
Yeah.
And you've been on other platforms. And same with social media. Like, I know a lot of artists want to just outsource that too. And there's a lot of social media consultants that will do that for you, but I find it's not as genuine.
Yeah.
It's, they're trying to pretend to be you, and it's hard to connect that way. But I think for where I coach artists to set up that system, doing it yourself, then you can pass it on to others. So then you still authentic, because you can provide a social media manager with all your captions that you wrote, all the photos, and they can kind of run with it and schedule it, and probably remind you to take photos, remind you, so it's definitely, you do want team members at some point. You just want to do this foundation work first and be able to pass that on to them so that everyone can be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you want to maybe just say again one more time where people can find your roadmap or contact you if they are wanting to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so to download that freebie, it's dianefoy.com/freebie. So my website is dianefoy.com. I have a podcast, singdanceactthrive.com, and I have a Facebook group. I am really big on Facebook groups. If you are going to spend time on Facebook, do it in the groups. That's a great way to make connections. So my group is Unstoppable Musicians and Actors. There's a link from my website, and then Instagram, Facebook, I'm Diane Foy, PR on all socials.
Fantastic. And would you like to maybe just tell us quickly a little bit about your podcast and what sort of inspired you to start the podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So one of my many issues is I am not comfortable on video so much yet. And so I was like, I got to create content, but how am I going to do that? Am I going to be on YouTube or whatever? So I felt like podcast was like a good start. And there's one thing for me to share what I know about the industry and how to make it, but I wanted to talk to already successful musicians and actors and dancers. And I love to explore. The thing about podcasts is that there's no real time limit, and you can really dive deep. Like, I love exploring artists' story from beginning to now.
Yeah.
How they got into this, and then hearing about the struggles along the way.
Yeah.
So when up and coming artists can hear from someone that they think is like so successful and that they still struggle, and the lessons they learned along the way. So I love that. I do talk to some industry people about topics. I've had Tom Jackson on. He's a performance coach, and different industry people to hear from their side. I have had a radio promoter on, music licensing. It's just all those things that, is maybe not my expertise, is having them on. And then I do some solo shows where I will, I guess, mini coaching sessions or Q&A. So.
Yeah, no, great. And so if you are wanting to find that, it's Sing, Dance, Act, Thrive podcast. And you can find that on Spotify, on all the locations, Spotify and Apple.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. Just like the Sounds on the Couch podcast. Yes. So I guess with that, I mean, you've had chats with some very interesting people. What have been some of the most memorable conversations you've had?
I had a really great experience this Collision Tech Conference.
Yeah.
It's this international tech conference, and I guess a few years ago they decided Toronto's going to be their home base. And I was just starting the podcast, and I was like, hey, I can get a media pass now. So, and they have some celebrities on there. And I'm like, I only care about like the actors, musicians.
Yeah.
But through that, I got to talk to at like a press conference style and Q&A style with like Timbaland, Akon.
Wow.
And it was just insane that like Timbaland and Akon, if they came to Canadian Music Week, I would get nowhere near them, But the tech conference, it was like opposite world.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't really that big of a crowd for the Q&A for like these, what my mind, superstars.
Yeah.
And yet some tech guy was like a rock star at a huge crowd. I'm like, this is not normal, but okay, I'm going to go with it because I get to, ask Akon a question and Timbaland and, Damon Wayans Jr., different people like that. So that was really great to be able to do that and have them on. And Akon, turns out, is very, very famous internationally. So I almost don't want to count the numbers for his episode because he's like 5 times as many downloads as any other episode. So that's been fun. I find I'm going after that less now.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it was just, it's fun for me. I'm a fan. I want to talk to famous people. It's fun and exciting. And I still do want to talk to people that I'm a fan of. But I think I've gone a little bit more into exploring the stories of maybe not quite as famous, but how they're still, succeeding. And then talking to other people that maybe they coach as well, or and having a little bit more deeper conversations.
Yeah. And I guess it goes back to that connection and who the person is sort of behind their music, which is very interesting, I think, to anybody listening. But, yeah. So what have been the biggest things that you've learned through this whole process?
For the podcast or just in general?
Oh, either.
Yeah. Oh. The podcast, I've learned to not be such a perfectionist.
Yeah.
When I first started, and also I'm still learning the tech. When I first started, I would spend insane hours editing because I was still learning editing, but I would just be like all night. If I said I was going to release the episode the next morning, I would be up all night. And also I would do tons of research before and have all the questions ready. And now I wing it. I see where the conversation goes. And, there's still some people that I might be a little nervous and still like, I was a huge fan of Michael DeBarge. So when I got to have him on my podcast, I was nervous and I did the research and, but in general, I just kind of do a little bit of research and it's after a while when you really do just want to explore the journey, the questions end up kind of being the same. And then what happened and what are the challenges along the way and just seeing where the conversation goes. And then with editing, I've also, I think, learned to interview in a way that there should be less editing, and just,
Oh, great. And I guess in your coaching as well, that's something that would come up a lot in terms of perfectionism. I think you get a lot of artists that are very much like this, everything that I do has to be perfect. And that often creates that kind of overwhelm that many artists do feel.
Yeah. And sometimes artists that they're fearful and sometimes they don't know when to just stop and release the song, you know.
Yeah.
You might just keep going. And I think that, again, that's when you go, hey, I'm procrastinating on getting this finished.
Yeah.
Because when I finish it, I'm going to have to release it.
Yeah.
Which is going to set me up for judgment and feedback. And then I'm going to have to really put myself out there. And, you know, it just, that loop goes on and on and on. So yes, we definitely deal with that with artists, of not being so precious with things and just being confident, doing the work.
Absolutely. No, this is amazing. So is there anything else sort of before we finish up that you would really like to share with our audience?
I think when it comes, for a lot of musicians, they're so concerned with their craft and they don't spend the time to learn the business and do the foundation, do the work. You know, and also when artists and anyone makes any excuses of why they don't do something, again, there's usually some fear and limiting beliefs about that. And a lot of that is with social media, because, you know, I do hear from a lot of artists of like, oh, social media is a waste of time. No, I know it's important, but you know, just like dismissing it. But the reality is, if you want to do this for a living, this is your calling, this is what you want to do, you have to do the work and you have to learn the business, you have to do social media and find a way to incorporate the things that you have to do so that you can do what you love to do.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for joining us today as well. It's been incredible.
No problem.